Hey guys, what's going on? Brandon Janis with The Start, guys. Super excited for today's guest and today's story. For those of you that don't quite know what we're doing, over the next 90 days, we're grabbing a story a day and we're sharing, we're helping them find their big, or they're going to share the big that they found, but more importantly, the process that they took to get to where they are now, or get to what got them to their big. So I'm super excited about today's story. We've known each other for a little bit now, and I'm not even sure how it all happened, but I've been following her story and just super inspired by her. And again, I don't know the whole story, and I love not knowing the whole story because I want to learn it with y'all as you're watching this. But my guest today is Teresa Scanlan from Scottsbluff, Nebraska, I believe, which I believe is more Colorado than Nebraska. I'm not even sure. It's way that way. But listen, I'm excited, Teresa. So real quick, just give us a little background on you, who you are, where you're from, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay, awesome. So I was Miss America 2011. Prior to that, Miss Nebraska 2010. From, like you said, from Gearing, Nebraska, Scottsbluff area, small town. Grew up the middle of 6 children, homeschooled most of my life. And then all of a sudden, this pageant stuff came into my life. And so from now on, I've forever known as Miss America 2011, ever since I won that title. So today I am a mom. I've got a 1-year-old. I am finishing my degree and starting law school here pretty soon, and pretty much a full-time public speaker that stemmed from my year as Miss America.
Awesome. So now if my stats are correct, there's only been about like 90 Miss Americas ever. Am I about right?
Right. So we're nearing our 100th anniversary. Miss America started in 1921. Okay. So in 2021 will be our 100th anniversary. I won as the 90th anniversary Miss America.
Wow. Well, that's big. Congratulations.
There we go. Thank you.
You don't just wake up and just want to be Miss America, or do you? So I guess my question is, or I guess that's probably not the way to look at it. Every woman probably wants to be Miss America at some point in their life, right? But only 90 people ever have gotten to do that. So when did you realize, okay, my big is I'm going to go be Miss America? How did this all happen? Because obviously that was your big. At what age did this happen? And kind of explain that to us.
Right. So you're right. For some women, I wouldn't say all women want to be Miss America, but quite a few little girls dream of being Miss America. And so for some of them, that starts really young, 8 years old, something like that. I was never one of those girls. So I never knew about Miss America. I never cared. That was definitely not my thing. I was a super nerd, as you would call them, growing up. So all I cared about was school and piano. So that's all I ever did. Mm-hmm. But then in high school, I started looking for ways to earn scholarship money for college. Again, one of 6 kids. I knew that my parents were not going to be paying for college. They couldn't. So I was going to need to find ways to earn scholarship money. I knew I wanted to go to law school. I knew I wanted to be involved in government someday, make an impact in the country. And so I saw in the paper at 13, my first year of high school, that there was a local county fair pageant, and you won something like a $200 scholarship. But hey, I was 13, so $200 was something. And so I decided to do it, just crazily out of the blue. And I bought a $12 dress from JCPenney as my evening gown. And I played my piano piece, and I somehow won. I had braces. I had crazy frizzy hair. I didn't know what I was doing. I took myself way too seriously, but I still won. And so from there, I just kind of realized, even at 13 years old, here in the local community in a small town, I started to be a role model for other girls. And I realized I'm really doing something here. I'm actually making a difference. I'm making an impact in some way, no matter how big or small that was. I had, little girls come up and want my autograph. And I was just thinking, what kind of impact am I having in their life that they want my autograph? And I'm just this random girl, right? So from there, I kind of realized that this was a way I could start to make a difference right here in my community. And then it became bigger than that slowly. So I would say that my big didn't just come on, all of a sudden as, a giant idea in the middle of the night or something. I just continued to have this growing passion inside of me for pageantry, for community service, for what this whole thing was about. And I remember a couple years later, I was 16 watching the Miss America pageant and thinking I would never, ever compete on that stage. I mean, I was watching it as something I would never attain, something I would never do. It never even crossed my mind that I would actually get to that point, but I just knew I enjoyed the small way that I was involved at the local level, at the state level. I won some pageants. I lost some pageants. I didn't just go through and win them all,
Right.
you know, so there were several that I didn't win. And I thought, is this even for me? And there were a couple times I questioned kind of continuing to compete, but realized I loved it. And I knew that I was making a difference. And so I continued.
So that's awesome. Thank you. Are you there? You got me?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, cool. I froze up for a sec, but why was it important to you? What was so important to you about doing this, continuing this? Because you won the project, you won the $200. Like, was it the impact you were having for people? What was it so important to you to continue this big?
Yeah, so there were two pieces to it, and one was my own personal growth. So I've always been a huge fan of personal growth, and I know that that's crucial to really living a fulfilling life and growing as a person. And so I saw in myself that this was a way that I was motivated to stay physically fit and active, because that's a component of the competition, to stay sharp academically, because academics is a huge part of the competition. You submit your transcripts, all sorts of things,
right.
And also to continue to grow in every other area of my life, community service, my involvement, all sorts of things, even continue playing piano. You know, it motivated me to keep going on those times that I didn't want to continue. And so I just realized that overall it helped me become a really well-rounded person. It helped motivate me in each of these areas of my life, and kind of provided a competition with myself of sorts to see if I could do better each time. You know, each competition, let me see if I can do better.
Right.
And so then the second piece was the impact that I saw I was having on other people. So my personal platform was on eating disorders awareness.
Okay.
And that stemmed from one of my friends who had an eating disorder when I was 13. And it was my platform all the way through. And I started to see through that and the other things that I was doing that I actually was impacting other people, and I was able to reach them. There's something weird when you put on a crown, all of a sudden people listen to you. So it's funny because, you know, you don't, as a 15-year-old, some teenager, you don't have that kind of respect and authority until you have that title and that crown and that sash, right? So all of a sudden I could walk into a group of adults and they would listen to what I had to say. And so it gives you this elevated platform and a microphone with which to really have a voice that you want to be an advocate for. And I just didn't know of any other way, especially at that age, but really at any age, that I could do something with that level of impact.
Wow, that's so cool. Now let me ask you this: rock bottom moments during this process, because you said at 16 you're like, oh, I could never do that, but then you won at 17.
Right.
So what happened, and what were the hard parts? And because there are people that are watching maybe that are dreaming of that or something along those lines, whether it's Miss America or something else that's an uphill battle. I mean, only one person wins every year, right? Like this is a hard thing. So a lot of losers. So give me some rock bottoms and some struggles and the things you went through.
Right. Okay. So what people may not know is that there's the teen pageant, which is kind of like the little sister pageant to Miss America. And that's what I was competing in, obviously, when I was 13, 14, 15, 16. Then I was suddenly eligible to start competing for Miss Nebraska and Miss America. I made the cutoff date by 1 week. So you have to understand that I'm a perfectionist. I like to be super prepared. I like to be perfect and ready to go and feel just on top of things, right? That was not the case when I decided to do this, because it was so last minute. So I had, my 1 week, I made the cutoff date. My age was right. I was going to graduate high school. And I just decided, okay, I guess I'm going to compete in this pageant. I did not feel ready at all. I didn't have anything prepared. And I drove, I think it was about 7 hours to a different part of Nebraska to compete in this local in the middle of February. In Nebraska, there's a lot of snow. So we drove there. I competed in this pageant. It was in this tiny little place where I played piano, right? And they had this old upright piano with missing keys on the piano, all sorts of stuff. But it was just not a fun pageant. It was ridiculous. But I won somehow. And that was my ticket to Miss Nebraska. So Miss Nebraska was 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I think everyone can relate to kind of a moment where you feel completely inadequate, and that would be it for me. where you're facing something that you're excited about, but you just feel like you've almost accepted defeat already because you just know you're not prepared. You're so inadequate. You're not where the other people are. So I was a 17-year-old, just graduated high school 2 weeks ago, had not stepped foot in college. And I was competing against 23 and 24-year-olds who, you know, were in their grad degrees, all sorts of stuff, had competed for 6 years. I competed when the first runner-up from last year was competing again. Everyone said she was going to win. You know, every kind of pressure you can think of was there. And I remember going there to the Miss Nebraska pageant thinking, okay, this is just a practice year. You know, this is just going to be practice. I will learn as much as I can. I will watch the other girls and learn from them. I'll write things down and I'll be better next year. And so this was kind of my resigning myself to make a fool of myself, to make a lot of mistakes and to go with it. Right. And that was a big step for me because that's not my personality at all. And so I had kind of accepted it's okay to fail. It's okay to be embarrassed. And I'm just going to go ahead. And somehow then that weekend I won Miss Nebraska. And it was the first time a 17-year-old had ever won Miss Nebraska. It was the first time in a long time that anyone had ever won their first year competing. And that was a crazy experience to me because it was so out of the blue. I never expected it. I was set to move to Virginia to start college 1 month later. I had to defer plans there. I had to do all of these things because you have to understand Miss Nebraska is a full-time job. So you put everything off. You don't work. You don't do school. You do that as a full-time job. So it changed my plans completely. So even though that was kind of a pinnacle, it was also in some ways a rock bottom moment because then it led to another obstacle, which was Miss America. So sometimes we also reach successes that become only increasing obstacles, right? Every level is kind of a new challenge and a new obstacle. And so for me, after winning Miss Nebraska, everyone was almost disappointed because they said, why did we pick a 17-year-old who has no experience because now we're going to have no shot at Miss America? So as I was preparing for Miss America, this was kind of overwhelming because everyone was telling me, basically, you're going to be a disappointment and we're going to be embarrassed of our Miss Nebraska, you know? And my whole goal was I'm going to try to make my state proud, but I feel once again, entirely inadequate to be competing at Miss America against so many women who I know are so much better than me. And so all I heard for those 6 months as I prepared was, Miss Nebraska has never won Miss America before, ever, in 90 years. 17-year-old has not won Miss America since 1937. So, you know, decades and decades.
Forever, yeah.
And you have no shot, just no chance, the end. So there was no question even. There was no entertaining the idea of winning. There was just, nope, this can't happen. And so I actually went with that mindset, but I think I allowed myself to dream as well. Because I do remember at Miss America during the week, practicing what I would do if I won and if the crown was placed on my head, you know, what my reaction would be. And that didn't end up being my reaction at all. What I practiced. But I allowed myself to dream of what was I thought impossible at the time. And all I heard the messaging from everyone was that it was just impossible. And so that was a longer period of kind of continual obstacles and continual being sort of at the bottom, I thought, and having to really work uphill. And it wasn't until the last moment that I even felt at all out of the woods in that regard.
Wow. So you won. When everyone said,
I did. Spoiler alert. I won.
So just in case y'all are wondering, so you won.
I still have people who always come up to me and say they have it DVR'd and they'll go back and watch the pageant and they still get nervous. Who's going to win? And they know I'm going to win, but they still get nervous about it.
So you're 17 years old. You're the youngest Miss America ever. You're the first Miss Nebraska that won Miss America. So you're 17 years old. Where do you go from there? Like, okay, you're Miss America now, right? And I know it's Miss Nebraska was a full-time job. I'm assuming Miss America was a time and a half or double time, right? You know, so you spent the year as Miss America, which I'm sure was amazing. I know I read a little bit about it. I mean, it was full time. You were I think 20,000 miles a month you traveled or something.
Yeah.
So that chapter's, let's shut the book on that chapter, right? So that chapter was over. I know it was amazing, but where do you go after you become Miss America? Like, where are you today? And what is your, I don't want to ask the final question, but where, what's the transition look like? Are you just Miss America, or are you Teresa? What are you today? What defines you today?
I mean, and that's a lot of questions all in one, because there's so much there that this was, now 7 years ago almost, that there's so much self-discovery that happens in between that time period. So when I was competing both for Miss Nebraska and for Miss America, I kept a journal during the week and would write down a verse that particularly applied to me that day and a prayer to go along with it. It was kind of my way to focus and center myself each day.
Sure.
And really make sure that this journey wasn't just about me, but was also about my relationship with Christ and what he wanted for my life. And so the night before I won Miss America, I wrote down 2 Timothy 2:14, the approved workmen are not ashamed verse, that's talking about be diligent to, show yourself approved. And I looked at that verse and I thought, this isn't just about Miss America, but this is about my entire life. And I wrote a prayer saying, I don't care what it is that you have for my life, but allow me to be where you want me to be. So whether it's Miss America, whether it's a different position or title or crown or whatever it may be, I want to be exactly where you want me to be in life. And then I won. And so that was my confirmation for sure that, okay, God, I guess this is what you want for my life for this year. But what was hard after that is still having that same confirmation of where he wanted me to be each and every year after that. Because sometimes we have those really clear signals like that, where it was totally out of my hands. I couldn't do anything to win or not win, and it still happened. And then other times the signals are much less clear and we truly don't know what to do or where to go. So I think after that year, I had a lot of those searching years, trying to figure out what those things were. I started college after my year because I hadn't been to college yet, and that was still a huge priority. So I used my scholarship money I had earned to start college. But I was still trying to travel full-time as a speaker, be full-time in college as a freshman, all of these kind of conflicting priorities almost. And that was a hard 4 years. I can't say that I handled it all that well, because it was those very questions that you were asking, I was asking myself of, am I only Miss America? Am I always going to be Miss America? Winning that young meant I really didn't have much else under my belt to kind of have my who I am based on other than Miss America.
Right.
So here I am still a teenager thinking, okay, now that's completely my identity. What else do I hold on to? And so I became afraid that people would only ever know me as Miss America. I became afraid that any relationship I was in would be because they knew me as Miss America, that I would never be able to let go of that and leave that behind me. And you don't want to leave it behind entirely, because it's a cool thing, it's a great thing, opens doors, it gets your foot in, all sorts of things. But at the same time, it's hard when you have an identity that's so thoroughly your identity for a year or more, and then all of a sudden it almost drops away, but you still have it. It's this very weird interim, right? So it's this semi-quasi celebrity status, and it's just so many strange situations put into one. So now I'm almost done with my degree in government and finally realized, I need to finally get through school. That's a big priority for me. That's a big part of who I am.
Sure.
I've always been into academics and education. I've always wanted to be an attorney. So I can't let necessarily these other things derail me. They have added to my experience, which makes me better in school and better in my job, but not to let that change who I am and what's most important to me. Same with my faith. There were a couple of years there that it really started to kind of take me away from that grounding influence in my relationship with Christ. And now realizing that once again, what I do has to be totally in line with who I am as a daughter of God, instead of thinking, oh, look, I can become more famous if I go this route and move completely away from what I believe and what my foundational values are. So it's been a constant battle, I think, of those prideful moments and selfish moments of seeing an opportunity and being so enticed by it and so tempted by it, and then knowing who you are and what you should actually do. And I think the thing that's made it more real to me now and helped me find, again, that definition of who is Teresa right now is having my son, because having kids, I'm sure, as you know, forces you to really take a look at, wait, who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I want them to be? And I have to do that by way of example. And so I can't just be chasing this, chasing that, and be all more. I have to make sure that I am creating a life I can live with. You know, making those foundational steps and moves toward what I ultimately want, rather than saying, oh, I'm young, I can do this for the time being, or I can do that, I can dabble in this or that. So really being able to hold on to my values, hold on to who I am, and realize that Miss America was a wonderful blessing, but it can be a curse if you let it, truly. I think anyone who's experienced any form of celebrity can tell you that, whether it's famous athletes, whether it's children who became famous at a young age, that can destroy you. It can destroy your life so easily. And we've seen that probably all over the place. Anyone has a million examples in their mind of celebrities who have just let it completely destroy their life. And I don't want that for myself or my son. And so this year has become a lot more of defining the life I can live with, creating that, moving toward that. So finishing school is a huge priority. Continuing ministry is a huge priority. Continuing being a public speaker. Being Miss America lighted that spark and that passion for me of being able to change lives in that way that I never knew I could do. You know, I was so shy growing up. I was not a speaker at all. I never knew I could do that. And so that's been an exciting new experience for me and a new discovery. And so all of those things are now a part of what I do on a daily basis and who I am.
So 2 more quick questions. That's a great answer. So how do you stay grounded? You know, I know your son's a big part of that, right? I mean, that's a big change for you. And for those that don't know, you're a single mom. I'm assuming that's okay to say. So how do you stay grounded? Because you're right. You're always going to be Miss America, and that's not a bad thing, you know? But how do you stay grounded? And then one piece of advice, and I'm totally going off script, but one piece of advice for single moms out there, because they're, you know, I have a lot of friends that are, and I think it's the most incredible thing in the world that y'all are able to do what y'all do, because that's not an easy thing. So those 2 things, how do you stay grounded, and advice to any single mom out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the 2 kind of go together, because how I stay grounded is somewhat also what I would advise to other single moms, is to have that inner circle and support network. For some, it's not family. So for me, it is family. But I know for many people, you don't have that. For myself, because I grew up in a really close family with my siblings, my parents, I still have that. They've been incredibly supportive. And I've been able to really grow my relationship with them again. I would say that my biggest mistake before was letting go of that too much. So I'm the kind of person that when I'm physically distant from someone, I stay distant. And so, you know, being geographically far away means I don't talk to them much, all sorts of things. So for years, I still, you know, loved them and felt close to them, but I did not stay in contact with my inner circle that was my support system. And that was a huge mistake and affected a lot of things in my life. So, you know, now being a single mom, I realized the importance of that. I made a lot of mistakes. The experience of the last couple of years that led up to this was not something I would have chosen. And I learned a lot of things from that. And so now I don't want, like I had said, I'm more cognizant of the decisions that I'm making and how they affect my son, and how I don't want to continue any of those detrimental patterns or damaging habits that I've had. And so being able to stay grounded and close to your support network and your inner circle is so important. I think it's easy to start to become more dependent on the opinions of random strangers, the opinions of a wide circle of people. And that makes us crazy. That makes us all over the place. You know, that I think can lead to a lot of damaging things. Instead of being more dependent on the people who know you best, who have your best interests in mind, who are united in purpose and vision with you. If someone doesn't share your values and priorities, then why does it matter, what they think or what are you doing with them? And that's a mistake I made with my ex-husband, is not understanding that you have to be in line with someone and have those same values. So I know that every single mom, I think, and even single dad is there for a different reason. We're put in these situations, sometimes by choice, sometimes not by choice. There's so many different situations that can lead to this experience of being a single parent. So it's kind of hard on a broad scale to speak to every individual experience. But I think regardless, be that stable character in your child's life, that you have rock solid values and morals that they can count on, that you have structure, that you have character and integrity that they can count on every time. I mean, I'm lucky that my son's only one, so the things he counts on me for right now are a little different, right? But as he gets older, it's going to be so much more important that he can count on me for very different things. To have mentors in your life and your child's life. So it's weird being a young person. So I'm 24 right now. I still am kind of in that place where I don't feel at all adequate or prepared to take care of him and raise him and parent him, and realizing I need mentors in my life just as much as I need to help have mentors and influences in his life, to have strong male role models as well as female role models for both of us. And so you're kind of simultaneously working with strengthening yourself as a person and your child. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of parents in general fall into, but especially single parents, is you focus so much on your child, you forget that you, first and foremost, have to be strong, have to be fulfilled, have to be healthy. We try to do all of that for our child, but if we are unfulfilled, unhealthy, unhappy, and weak, there's nothing we can do for our child. And I think we have that so skewed sometimes, where if we're modeling a healthy, strong lifestyle, then our children will pick up on that, not the other way around. So I think sometimes we kind of create a false dichotomy there of you're either all about your child or all about yourself. And it's just not true. You have to simultaneously be working on both in order to truly love and take care of your child and yourself.
That is so good. And you're right. That's not just for single parents. Everything you said there is for just parents in general. So if you're not a single parent, this is good stuff too. So good. Okay. Final question. This has been so much fun. So again, I hate going back to it, but you achieved a really, really big at 17 years old, being Miss America, which is incredible. So what is your big today? 24 years old, single mom, whether it's going back to school or whatever that may be for you. If someone were to ask you right now, what is your big? What are you pursuing today? Let us know.
Yeah. So, and I got that question way back even when I was giving up my title as Miss America. I had just turned 18 now, and everyone's going, "Oh, so Miss America at 18, where do you go from here?" And I felt like, wait, is my life all downhill from now on? That's a miserable prospect.
Yes.
Have I really hit the pinnacle at 17, and then all of a sudden the rest of my life is useless?
Yes, it's so funny.
It's horrible to think of it that way, but then sometimes we do. I think no matter what age you are, when you hit kind of high achievement, some pinnacle, you do feel either the pressure, extreme pressure to go another step higher, and that can be unhealthy, or then just the complete despair that it's all downhill after this. And I think that's why it's so important. I love what you guys are doing about rediscovering a new big, even if one has been accomplished or if you've never accomplished a big. Either way, there's always another one that has to be more than just impressing the people around you. So before, I think my main motivation was trying to, okay, and now I need to do something even better to impress everyone. So I used to think that I wanted to be involved in politics and become president, because that would be a next pinnacle. Right?
That's a big one.
Now, it is, but I'm not sure if that is necessarily going to be the case. I wouldn't put it out entirely, but I would say that my objectives have changed a little bit, where I still think that maybe, again, if God calls me to that, I understand. But at the same time, I know that I'm most fulfilled when I feel that my work is making an impact, making a difference, and changing lives. And so I still do want to become an attorney to that end. I still do perhaps want to be involved in politics in the future to that end. So right now, this fall, I'll be applying to law schools to attend starting the fall of 2018, finally get through my 3 years and get my law degree and start practicing. But also within that, I have continued to do public speaking, motivational speaking, working with children, working with nonprofits, because anywhere that I know I can make an impact and really change lives is in line with my big, right? So I wouldn't say at this point my big is anymore about the titles and things I can put on a resume, but so much more about the quality and substantive impact of what I'm doing. And that's kind of what I measure everything I do against, right? Does this fulfill my purpose in Christ? Is this what is God's calling me to do, to use whatever talents or abilities I have, or whatever experience I have, whatever personal things I've been through? How can I use that to help other people who might be going through the same thing? And sometimes they can be using the embarrassing parts of my life that I'm not proud of. Sometimes it can be using the great parts of my life that are impressive and exciting, like Miss America. It can be all of those things. And I enjoy doing that. I will say that it's still difficult though, because anytime I go somewhere and most people know me as Miss America, it can be that pressure all over again. And you can start to feel almost derailed from your purpose. And so now I think it's a constant struggle and battle to continue to review my priorities and my mission in life, and to see where that is taking me, because I want ultimately to see other people be willing to follow where God's calling them, whatever that may mean. And I think that that is what I love most, is seeing that in my own life and in others' lives. And the last couple of years have taught me that the things that hurt us the most, the worst possible experiences we've ever been through, can be the most incredible growing and learning experiences, even more so than the successes.
Wow.
Failures can be so much more important to who we are as a person and to what we learn about God and how he takes care of us than the best pinnacles of our lives, right? So we can be on a mountaintop, but mountains aren't going to last forever. And the valleys are where growth happens. I heard a sermon that the pastor was talking about valleys are where things grow and flourish, right? The valleys are where it's green, where things are constantly growing and renewing and refreshing, not the mountaintops, right? Mountaintops are great for the view and the experience, and it's exhilarating, but that's not where things are growing and renewing. And so the valley experiences can be so much more important if we're willing to learn what God's teaching us right then and there. And so that's where I'm at right now. Honestly, more of a valley than anything. That has been a huge redefining experience for me, in knowing where that next mountaintop might be.
That's such a good answer. This is so good. Like, I want to keep going and going and going because it's so good, but I do love that the decisions you make in the valleys are going to be what keep you on the peaks longer next time, you know?
Right.
And that's so good. Anything we do in life. So Teresa, this was amazing, and this isn't the last we're going to see of you, I'm sure, and I'm excited. And guys, if y'all have questions or comments or want to know more from Teresa or want to hear more from Teresa, comment and like and follow her. She might have 5,000 friends. She probably does, so you may just have to follow and not add her as a friend, but definitely.
I'll go delete a few people.
There you go. Be quick. But guys, go comment and show Teresa some love. Not that she needs that, but this has been super impactful. And for me, I mean, this is just awesome. I'm so thankful for you.
Thank you.
For someone who went and crushed their big with a lot of doubt and a lot of things that were thrown her way at 17 years old and from Nebraska. Who wins from Nebraska? To then be able to continue the life that she's on right now with I think she said, I'm in a valley right now, yet look at her positivity, look at her excitement, look at her energy. Like, that's someone I want to learn from. That's someone we can all learn from. So thank you, Teresa. You were a wonderful guest for us.
Thank you for sharing my story. Thank you for being willing to talk. I really appreciate it. I appreciate what you do. I'm so excited to watch it. I've been enjoying the stories so far, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And again, this will not be the last we hear from you guys. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.